Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Harris, you mentioned as one of the tenets of regulation provenance. By that, do you mean notice that when consumers deal with a robot, they should be told that it's a robot?
Thank you so much for your question,
You
Senator.
don't need to thank me. You can just answer it.
There are multiple elements of provenance technologies. One is disclosure. And yes, that is saying that if a company uses AI and has AI interacting with you, that it should disclose that you are interacting with an AI system or a bot. But another element
So
of...
that number one is notice. If I'm interfacing with a robot or with artificial intelligence, the owner of that artificial intelligence should tell me as a consumer, I'm a robot.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's number one. Tell me what number two is.
So number two is sometimes referred to as watermarking. I know that this committee heard in April testimony about this topic of watermarking. And watermarking can happen in one of two ways. It can be either a visible or direct disclosure that content, for example, an AI-generated image, an AI-generated audio file, video, or even text, can be a direct disclosure that it's AI-generated. You've seen watermarks that have...
I get it. So that's another form of notice.
Yeah, you could call it that. But that's direct watermarking. Then there's also another technique, which is a more indirect disclosure, which is hiding an invisible signal within the text of a piece of text that's generated by AI, within an image, which is a hidden pattern of pixels.
What good does that do in terms of a consumer?
Well, the good thing about that is that it can be much more difficult to remove than simply a notice that says this was produced by AI at the top or bottom of a picture that you could just crop out and remove very easily. So watermarks have value in that sense. There's also another technology that was also discussed in April here, which is called digital fingerprinting. This technology has been used to keep track of child sexual abuse material and terrorist content circulating online. And that creates what's called a hash, a unique identifier for images, audio files, could be even done with text or videos, and that's stored in a database, and that can associate a piece of content and then identify it as AI generated.
All these are forms of notice.
Some more direct than others, I would call them forms of...
I'm not trying to trick you, I'm trying to understand. Are there any companies that are giving the world proper notice right now? Anybody?
So, I'm happy to answer that.
Sure.
So according to their public statements...
Yes or no, please, sir, because I got other ground to cover.
Google DeepMind SynthID is the name of the technology. Looks good. I haven't tested it.
But they're trying to give notice.
Yeah.
Okay. Licensing. What good is licensing going to do? I mean, you go to the government and say, okay, here, give me a license. What good is that going to do?
Well...
Anybody.
I'm happy to take that one also briefly. As is the case in many professions, the law, medicine, you need a license to practice, and if you violate the code of that profession, you can no longer practice. And with technology, I see no reason why it should be different.
So with the license, we should have a code of behavior?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And what should be in that code of behavior?
Again, happy to offer this to any of my co-panelists here, but I believe that ethics are critical, that artificial intelligence systems should be designed in ways that they can't harm human beings, that they don't do damage to people, that they don't discriminate, that they don't give people advice that brings harm to them, that's incorrect. Those are a few elements of the code.
So basically, I'm trying to understand this.
Yes.
Because I think you're all extraordinarily bright. That's obvious, but the American people don't understand what you're talking about. Okay, and frankly, many times neither do I. So you license with a code of behavior. That would require government to set up some sort of agency to enforce that code of behavior. Is that correct?
This is an area where there are actually multiple interesting proposals. There's a law professor at Fordham Law School named Chinmayi Sharma who has been writing about creating a malpractice regime for engineers who develop AI.
Well, that's what I'm getting to next. Liability. It is possible for the private sector to enforce through liability. Why are our tort laws right now, our contract laws right now, not adequate?
Again, go ahead.
I can jump in on that.
Yes.
At present, it's very unclear how AI should be thought of and how different actors in what gets called the value chain should take responsibility for unintended outcomes. The best comparison that people turn to is issues with software, issues with cybersecurity, which I think many tort experts, which I am not one, consider to be an area of liability that has not been especially successful in allocating responsibility for harms. And so, that's not an especially promising precedent necessarily, and also AI is very different from the kinds of software you're used to dealing with, and the problems and harms that AI can cause are different from cybersecurity issues. So I think liability is a way, if there can be clear allocation of liability, that's a way of sort of flexibly setting incentives that depend on the specifics of any given case that could potentially be quite helpful if it were possible to provide more clarity.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much.